You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live and to the new abnormal. I'm Robin Morgan. Today we've put together a sort of care package for you from the comfort zone. We've got some new non-fake news resources for you to check out. Another spirit-lifting thing that you can do from the safety of your home and that you might just find you want to do even whenever that is, the lockdown is lifted. And of course there'll be fighting words at the end of the program. But my guest today, well, one of the things that is so disheartening about this crisis, it may seem small in the context of such widespread grief and loss, but it's not small. All those writers and artists, those singer-songwriters, those dancers, those choreographers, those artists who had works just about to debut or be published or staged or come out, and then there's this. And they either come out and fall down into a great well where they're never heard of again, or they're held off. Well, my guest today came out with a remarkable book, and it has received far too little attention. So we're going to give it the attention it deserves. That guest is a poet. She also identifies as a feminist and a witch, and she has put together an anthology of fine writers, first rate, all of them writing across centuries on an unexpected subject, and very timely one, abortion. So before we get to any of those things, we are going to go inside the headlines. With one exception, which I'll save till the very end, inside the headlines this week is again all about the 2020 plague. I'm afraid it's likely to be for some time, since that subject dominates all headlines and news stories around the globe. Still, some stories do drop through the cracks. They got reported maybe once and then vanished as being considered just not that important in this world crisis. That such stories should disappear, buried deep inside those headlines, while Trump's maniacal blatherings still dominate headlines, is intolerable. Some of these stories are too sick even for the surrealism corner, like this one. The National Rifle Association, embattled by budget pressures, mismanagement, and bitter internal fights for control, as well as embattled by a growing and vigorous gun control movement, yes, that NRA, well, they have sued the state of New York over its decision to include gun retailers among the businesses forced to close during the crisis. The NRA has already filed 2 lawsuits against California, where Governor Newsom has left the decision to various counties. Not New York. We went statewide. Yay for us. Poor NRA. It and other gun groups had been successful in their federal lobbying at the Department of Homeland Security, which obediently added firearms vendors to the list of essential businesses. Essential! And that prompted New Jersey and some other states to reverse course and allow such stores to stay open. NRA leaders have also used the virus as an occasion for desperate fundraising since they're about to go bankrupt. Mailings saying you need to protect yourself. From what? You're going to shoot the virus? Well, no, but they're in need, they say, of the funds to ensure what? That Trump is reelected in November. I don't think so. In country after country, the public faces lockdowns and social distancing. But the more authoritarian cultures, or those countries who currently have authoritarian leaders, have devised punishments that themselves violate human rights. In Kenya, an 11-year-old boy was shot standing on a balcony in his own home. In Paraguay, violators are publicly humiliated by being forced to do jumps until ready to drop, and then to chant about their shame while lying face down on the ground. In the Philippines, those who violate the lockdown are forced inside large dog cages, which are then left in the hot midday sun. In India, migrant workers, walking home by the hundreds of thousands because there's no work for them where they are, and they have no place to be, they're being forced to squat by the roadside while being sprayed with harsh chemicals before being allowed back into their home provinces. The United Nations Human Rights Office has protested in all these and other such cases, but these days no one's listening. 2 cases of COVID-19 and 1 death have already surfaced in 2 adolescent members of the indigenous Yanomami tribe in the Amazon deep jungle region called Amazonia. The virus has fertile terrain there to spread rapidly among the populations, and there are many different groups of Yanomami, because the isolated indigenous people there have absolutely no resistance whatsoever to it. The Yanomami peoples live in separation from the rest of Brazil, and they keep to their ancient ways. But they've had to defend incursions from illegal loggers and miners who are seeking their fortune in the Amazon forest. And the new right-wing regime controlling Brazil is less sympathetic to the Yanomami than to the violators, who are, of course, the carriers of the virus. Indigenous groups and Brazilian NGOs active in protecting Amazonia and in preserving Yanomami rights point out that this mounts up to, in effect, genocide. If you're curious about how well or ill your own country is doing as compared with other countries in the fight against the coronavirus, there's a new, excellent information source that can help you. Oxford University has launched the world's first COVID-19 government response tracker. It's available online at BSG. Think bells sound great. BSG. bsg.ox.ac.uk. And from there you can find COVID tracker. It's freely available, and it will continue to be updated throughout the pandemic. The tracker launched with data from 73 countries, including China, South Korea, Italy, UK, Canada, and the USA. It systematically records government responses, and it aggregates the scores into a common stringency index, allowing users to explore the various information available on 11 indicators of government response. These include school closures, workplace closures, public event cancellation, public transport closure, public information campaigns, restriction on internal movement, international travel controls, fiscal measures, monetary measures, emergency investment in healthcare, and investment in the vaccines. Again, that's bsg.ox.ac.uk. Another different kind of resource, but no less important one, is focused on girls age 11 to 18. That's a challenging age to begin with, especially if you're female, even under normal circumstances. Girls Learn International, GLI, has more than 225 chapters in the United States and 15 other countries, and is a program of the Feminist Majority Foundation. GLI empowers and educates middle and high school students to become activists for human rights and sex equality. In light of widespread school closures, GLI is offering free online activity guides for those students and for educators from their unique online guidebook, the only peer-led study-to-action curriculum for students age 11 to 18. You can find out more at www.girlslearn.org, and you can find a link thereon to the free activity guide. And a heartening perk for girls and grown people and boys and anybody. Each day this heartening perk, which I recommend highly, especially since April is Poetry Month, comes our way from the Academy of American Poets. Poets.org, their website, offers you a chance to subscribe for free to receive the poem a day, and it has thousands of happy poetry addicts who get their poetry fix every day. Now, Poets.org also has added free Shelter in Poems. Shelter in Poems is a weekly gift of poetry particularly for solace and comfort. Poets.org from the Academy of American Poets. And now for the story I promised that has nothing to do with the virus. But it squeaked in under the radar, and it's very good news indeed. It took a week of mounting legal pressure launched by feminists, but finally Northern Ireland was forced to authorize abortion services in the region, putting into force legislation overturning one of the world's most restrictive abortion laws. Months earlier, abortion rights had been extended to Northern Ireland for pregnancies up to 12 weeks, but the introduction of services actually performed was delayed by the health minister because of his ideological objections. The legislation, which was fought for by Irish feminists for decades, legalized abortion, and that legislation was passed by the British Parliament after the collapse of the Northern Ireland Regional Power-Sharing Government. The boys couldn't get along, so guess what? Previously, women seeking abortions in Northern Ireland had to travel to England or the Republic of Ireland, but the cost was prohibitive for many, and currently, because of the lockdown, the only way to get to England is an 8-hour ferry ride from Belfast to Liverpool. So women's rights groups threatened mass civil disobedience, and finally the Department of Health said it would authorize medical professionals in hospitals and clinics to provide services. This is a triumph, almost overlooked, and it's almost a century in the making. And we should all celebrate those Irish feminists who finally brought it home. It's time for our first break, but there's a lot more coming up. Not all of it, believe it or not, related to the coronavirus, because we're able to gum and chew walk at the same time. And that tells me that what's coming right up is the Surrealism Corner. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Just as the coronavirus doesn't respect borders, bizarre news doesn't respect segments, and so we continue on into the Surrealism Corner. Some items need no comment, like this one. Trump has put his son-in-law, businessman of highly questionable ethics, Jared Kushner, in charge of the national response to the pandemic. Here's another one that stands alone. The $2.2 trillion stimulus payout, ostensibly to aid small businesses, has tucked into it aid and tax relief that happen to benefit real estate developers just like Trump and Kushner. These benefits amount to $170 billion, which is more than the sum reserved for hospitals at $100 billion, and more than the sum reserved for all state and local governments, $150 billion. Here's a third that's way beyond the necessity for a comment, and I know you must have heard it. Although the IRS claims it's rushing to send $1,200 paper checks to millions of Americans, the folks, standing 6 feet apart in food pantry lines, the process will now be slowed by a few days to maybe longer, maybe a week, because Trump's Treasury Department has, at his command, ordered that his name be printed on each check, an unprecedented decision. But here's a note to try and make you smile. Yang Yang and Lele, two giant pandas who would never mate despite 13 years, or maybe because of, living together in the Hong Kong Zoo, successfully mated a week or so ago, which is a rarity for the species in captivity. Pandas have a mating season of just a few days per year, but perhaps they also require some privacy, for Pete's sake. The zoo shut down, you see, in late January. That was part of Hong Kong's measures to fight the virus. Then, once the visitors stopped coming and peering at them, Yang Yang began playing in the water more, and Lele left scent markings around his habitat and kept sniffing around for the scent of Yang Yang. Now, we won't know if Yang Yang is pregnant until about 2 to 3 weeks before birth, and the gestation period can be as short as 72 days and as long as 324. But something might just be on the way. Go, pandas! Now, I don't know about you, but I have discovered that I'm a bookshelf and interior design voyeur. All those from-home interviews being conducted during lockdown are quite interesting. We get peeks into folks' homes. Various news anchors across the board seem to appear before scrims with photos of the Empire State Building or the White House or the Capitol, backgrounds that look not that different from their usual ones on set. I don't know if this is a sign that they are actually on set as essential workers, or if a scrim is being pulled over our eyes while they work secretly from home wearing their pajama bottoms. But it's an interesting class distinction, especially since we see beat reporters out there at press briefings in the White House and with governors and in emergency rooms and hospital lobbies and nursing homes, masked and on the job, however terrified they may be. Politicians, on the other hand, seem to go for a background consisting of a bookshelf, one, holding 4 or 5 books, a family photo, and a plant, apparently the most interesting background they can find in their homes. I cannot help wondering if this is the extent of their library. True, I'm hopeless on this subject. It wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say that I sublet my apartment from my books. They let me live here so as to dutifully dust them and reverently read them. They are wall to wall. They are everywhere. They are working on how to defy gravity and be on the ceiling. They would like to have bookshelves in the garden except for the getting wet in the rain part. There are few wall spaces left for hanging paintings because the walls have been colonized by the bookshelves. It seems I'm a reader. So, apparently, is Madeleine Albright, and so is Susan Rice. You can tell the real reader from the fake one by the sheer number of shelves in the background with their spilling over and spilling out books. Now, as a writer, I naturally try to read the titles on their shelves in a kind of never mind what they say, what did they read analysis. So far, it's gone by too fast and too distant for me to decipher much, but I am working on it. Then there are the nice surprises, like, wouldn't you just know that Congressman Adam Schiff, hero of the Trump impeachment hearings and trial, always magically fresh and classically elegant in appearance and eloquence, even at 1 a.m. after a 20-hour day, Adam Schiff, being interviewed from home, wouldn't you know he'd have an old-fashioned classic wood roll-top desk? I mean, how perfect is that? And a last note on language. Reportedly, everyone is so comfy working from home that sweatpants have been selling off the digital market shelves, and regular pants have now been renamed hard pants. Liquor sales are also up, as former in-office workers swig booze from coffee cups, 'cause nobody in those Zoom meetings can tell the difference. Well, God bless the Finns, who have a word for this. In Finland, the tradition of getting drunk at home in your underpants is apparently so commonplace they have a word for it, which in Finnish means underpants drunk. The word is kalsarikanja. Kalsarikanja, underpants drunk. So if you feel yourself drifting into kalsarikanja, do keep in mind that it's not because the winter is long and dark as in Finland, but in your case, it's the newest normal. And yes, it's surreal. We have to take another quick break before the conversation, but if you're stuck at home and looking for something good to read, this may just be the thing you're looking for, particularly in these days when the extreme right is cynically using the crisis to work against women's right to reproductive freedom, including abortion. And with that so imperiled by a number of governors who tried to declare it a non-emergency procedure and elective surgery and to delay it, and the general assault on women's reproductive rights, you might want to read something that not only doesn't compromise your politics, but is literary as well. For what that is, stay tuned, because it's coming right up. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
My guest for the conversation today is Annie Finch, an American poet, nonfiction writer, editor, translator, critic, verse playwright, busy woman. Her first poetry collection, Eve, was a finalist for the National Poetry Series and the Yale Series of Younger Poets, and she's just gone on and produced lots of books since then. In fact, Spells, her new and selected poems, came out in 2012. Her poems have been widely anthologized, including the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day and Penguin Book of the Sonnet and the Norton Anthology of World Poetry, and on and on. In her prose writing and editing and literary organizing, she's done a number of anthologies, but today we're here to discuss her newest anthology, which, to my sadness, has been published right in the middle of this crisis and has not got the attention it deserves. It's a first of its kind, and it satisfies the soul that is sick of jargon about women's right to reproductive freedom and hungers for the real stuff. This is the real stuff. Here's Annie Finch. Annie Finch, welcome to the program. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Robin. Oh, I am the biggest fan. I have downloaded so many episodes of your show and listened to them in the woods when I wasn't listening to anything else. I am just such a deep fan of your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And you're a sister poet as well as a sister feminist. And
absolutely.
So I congratulate you on your poetic career. But today we're here to talk about a different accomplishment, one I particularly appreciate because of having done 3 anthologies, as we know, and I know what goes into that. And this book is called Choice Words. And it, full disclosure, listeners, I gave it a blurb, and what I said was, with reproductive rights under relentless assault, never has a book been more needed. Annie Finch has spanned 5 centuries and 6 continents to assemble writers who articulate a commonality of experience in every situation and emotion, conceived and compiled with scrupulous scholarship and with an illuminating introduction by Katha Pollitt. Choice words will become a classic of both feminism and literature. Robin Morgan said that. And it is, of course, an extraordinary compilation of writers about the procedure of abortion.
It actually took 20 years to get this from the first illumination of it to the book now. So it's been quite the journey, really.
Talk about where the germ of that idea came from, and also the 5 sections, which I find fascinating, the way you've divvied up the book.
Yeah. I started it because I had an abortion, and afterwards I was kind of floored by the intensity of the experience on so many levels, and I was looking for literature to, I was a writer, I have a PhD in literature, this is how I process the world, so yes. I really could find so little. There were these 2 wonderful poems, which are now in the book, by Gwendolyn Brooke and Lucille Clifton. The Mother by Gwendolyn Brooks and the Lost Baby poem by Lucille Clifton. And aside from those 2 great poems, they were like these little glimmers that, yes, people can write about this, people have written about this, but I couldn't hardly find anything else. Yeah. As Katha talks about in her foreword, there are a few pieces by men which basically treat abortion as kind of a symbol of decadence. So for 18 years, I kept looking, and I started wondering about abortion in different continents and different centuries, and I looked, and a lot of things came up as dead ends, but the more I looked, the more I found these hidden gems. I mean, things that had not been known before, that were like hidden inside other books, or bits, stories like Dorothy Parker has an amazing story about abortion that I never knew about. I mean, writers I had admired, but I didn't know they'd written about it. Langston Hughes has a great story in here.
Well, it just wasn't considered a literary subject, I mean, we've had centuries of the guys inserting pricks, rods, tools, and other, hyperbolic metaphors for penises into poems, but menstruation, it was not to be discussed. Childbirth was not to be discussed. Certainly, abortion was not to be discussed.
Even more so.
Even
shame.
Oh my God, my God, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
So you the detective work alone is amazing. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. And I put out this call, and as the years went, I would get discouraged. I would stop, and I would start again, and there was this gradual accumulation of bits. And then after it's just about 18 years of it, so 2 or 3 years ago, I just got so sort of discouraged because, I don't know, I was like, what am I doing? I've done anthologies before, and I didn't know if it was worth it, and it was just kind of not working. And then the Kavanaugh confirmation happened.
Yep.
And that's what kicked me into gear. I got so enraged. I just was like, this is something
good for you.
So I just knuckled down and I finished it for two years of really, really intense work. But, including a great Kickstarter campaign where all these people came forward. In 1 month, we earned all the money for the permission, $17,000 in a month, because the Alabama ban happened. I know. It was the day after the Kickstarter
That's a story in itself. That's just so lovely.
There have been so many stories. It feels like it was, the momentum has been amazing. And you were asking about the 5 sections.
Yes.
So I think that was, in a way, a very great thing about the 18-year wait, was that I wouldn't have had a way to structure it before. And, I thought about chronologically, I thought about alphabetically, and nothing seemed right. Nothing seemed to really honor the experience.
Right.
It's such a deep experience, mind, body, heart, will, or spirit, that, obviously many of the pieces in the book incorporate all of these, but
sure.
It really was a great way to provide a lot of different entry points for people who want to approach it from different directions. How do you make the decision to have an abortion? That's the mind. And then there's the incredibly amazing physical differences across cultures and times. and then the body, and then there's the heart, the effect
Right.
on the people in your life. And so many of these stories and poems talk about, the importance of like a mother or a friend or the doctor, and just how important that support system is, and then the agony of loneliness that's caused by the shame and the restrictions on abortion, and how that hurts the heart. So, that section is amazing. The section on the will is like all the great political stuff, like
Right.
Marge Piercy's poem about, my life is a non-negotiable demand, right to life, it's called. Just the power and the will that it takes. Audre Lorde's account of having an abortion in the 1950s in Brooklyn. I mean, just the power of her will. It's a section called Spirit, which has rituals and just spiritual approaches to abortion, and also responses to patriarchal religion and what that does, to people having abortions.
The people whom you've assembled are, just stunning. Ursula K. Le Guin, my dear departed, much missed friend, and Anne Sexton and Entezaki Shange and Joyce Carol Oates and Leslie Silko and Amy Tan and Gloria Steinem, but the quality of writing. But you have set such a really fine, high standard for the writing in the book.
It was very important for me to keep a very high bar so that this would become not just a literary curiosity, but also a manifesto and something that people can hold up in their hand while they're organizing for reproductive freedom, saying
Yes.
We are full human beings and our reproductive autonomy is an essential part of our humanity. And look, here we are in this book. We have minds, we have bodies, we have hearts, we have wills, and we have spirits. And all of these things are fully present in the experience of abortion. And we are fully responsible for our human experience in all of these ways. We are more than half of humanity, and we are full human beings. It cannot be discounted. So this is something that only literature can do, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something that literature can go places, art can go places that nothing else can go into. And this is a very fine work of that. Two final questions. One, what does it do to, my God, to have a book like this, any book, come out in plague time? Friends who are musicians, who are artists, who are having shows about to debut, or records or plays open, or are just
crazy times.
It's devastating. So, what does this do to the book to be published in the first months of this plague?
Well, it is fascinating. I mean, the release date was March 8th, International Women's Day. We planned this wonderful tour in all these cities, and it's going to go all over both coasts, and it's been swept up in this amazing wave. So I can't help thinking that maybe this move to virtual reality is part of that wave. Like, part of my vision for the book from the beginning has been that it would provide an organizing way for women.
It could be a cross between a book club and an organizing cell.
Yeah. So we have a website. So this wonderful volunteer appeared out of nowhere just when the book was coming out, and she's built a website called choicewordsaction.org. And that website is like a meetup where people can come and register their events, like in their own neighborhoods, if they want to have like a Choice Words book party or a book discussion group or a rally or like a dramatic performance like Vagina Monologues type of performance or a fundraiser or any event around this book, that they can register that event in their zip code and connect with other women or
That's
other
terrific.
People in the area.
That's great. What is it again?
Choicewordsaction.org.
Okay, that's superb. Now, my last question, could you read a few samples?
I'm going to read just two things 5 centuries apart. Here is from the Ballad of Tam Lin. It's about Lady Margaret. Lady Margaret was sewing at her seam when a thought comes to her head to run into the wood to pick flowers for her hat, So she goes into the woods. She meets like this green man spirit of the woods and gets pregnant. And then, so here's her serving girl says, I think my lady's loved too long, and now she goes with child, my dears. Now she goes with child. The second serving girl spoke up. Ever and alas, said she, I think I know an herb in the merry green wood that'll twine the babe from thee, lady, that'll twine the babe from thee. Lady Margaret, she picked up her silver comb, made haste to comb her hair. She's away to the merry greenwood as fast as she can tear, but boys, as fast as she can tear. Isn't that wonderful?
That's fantastic. That is amazing.
Yeah, so then, 500 or 600 years later, we have Marge Piercy. A woman is not a pear tree thrusting her fruit in mindless fecundity into the world. Every pear trees bear heavily one year and rest and grow the next. And then she ends, priests and legislators do not hold shares in my womb or my mind. This is my body. If I give it to you, I want it back. My life is a non-negotiable demand.
Yes, that's a great last line. Oh, what a jewel casket this book is, with all these gems in it. Thank you for this book, my dear, and for the 20 years that went into it, and for the other work that you do.
Thank you, Robin. What a joy to talk with you. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for your words on choice words.
And it's time for our very last break before I return with some fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
Sometimes quiet listening is necessary to hear fighting words. Citizens of the North Indian state of Punjab are awestruck at the sight of the Himalayan mountain range, which after almost half a century is again visible more than 100 miles away. This is thanks to the reduction in air pollution caused by the national lockdown over coronavirus. Around the world, in cities large and small, the screaming years of civilization and modernity are now barely detectable on seismograms. Little or no traffic, less large-scale machinery, a 30% drop in the cacophonous morning rush in Britain, a 38% drop in midday Paris, a 50% drop in parts of Los Angeles, a stunning 60% drop noted at the Geophysical Institute in Quito, Ecuador, where suddenly they can clearly hear rumblings from the active volcano beneath the city. As a result of this human quiescence, the planet's ongoing natural quivering, shifting, and settling can be heard, can be registered, can be recorded with astonishing clarity, as if the earth were a living thing. I'm not suggesting we go back to the caves, but as if the planet, all but smothered by trash, were alive. Each spring like this one is the time to go into the garden and rake up the mulch and the leaves and the general gunk the winter has deposited, and it's a thrilling task, because you must rake carefully and lightly. Since pale green shoots and stalks are hidden there, they've already poked their heads above ground, unseen, beneath the gunk. A snowdrop or two, an iridescent crocus, the first stiff, tight-furled horn of a hosta, the promise. It has not gone unnoticed, even by CNN, that women leaders around the world have been doing a disproportionately superb job in handling the pandemic. A CNN report by Leta Hong Fincher, who has been a guest on this program, examined in detail how women, who make up less than 7% of world leaders, took early and decisive action in widely different cultures and saved lives. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen, who even on the basis of a rumor ordered all planes arriving from Wuhan to be inspected, then established an epidemic command center, ramped up production of personal protective equipment, and restricted all flights from China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Fincher also cites New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who, despite tourism being a major economic factor in the country, also took early action to close down the borders, bar tourists, and impose a national lockdown, limiting casualties so far to just 9 deaths. Yes, it's a small country, population the size of the New York City borough of Brooklyn about, but then look at Germany, with 83 million citizens, where Chancellor Angela Merkel also acted early and firmly. Germany has the most intensive care beds and the largest scale coronavirus testing program in Europe. Consequently, there have been only 132,000 infections and a death toll far lower than most other European countries. Finland's Prime Minister, the youngest world leader, 34-year-old Sanna Marin, was so prepared that the country has suffered only 59 deaths in a population of 5.5 million. Iceland's Prime Minister, Katrin Jakobsdóttir, governs 360,000 people, but her large-scale testing has ramifications for the whole world, since it found out that about half of all people who test positive for the virus are asymptomatic. Iceland also initiated early contact tracing and quarantine. All this while Donald Trump was declaring that the virus was a hoax perpetrated by Democrats and the press. 4 of the 5 Nordic countries are led by women, and each one has a lower death rate from the virus compared to the rest of Europe. The 5th country, Sweden, is led by Prime Minister Stefan Löfven. He refused to impose a lockdown and has kept schools and businesses open. The Swedish death rate has soared higher than most other European countries. Nor are the female heads of state restricted to Europe or the Pacific. Prime Minister Silveria Jacobs of the little island St. Martin in the Caribbean made a no-nonsense video telling her citizens to just stop moving. She added, "If you don't have the type of bread you like in the house, eat crackers. If you do not have bread, eat cereal. Eat oats." The video went, well, viral. Not to be simplistic, it must be mentioned that South Korea's male President Moon Jae-in is deserving of praise and has received it for having flattened the curve of infections through widespread testing. But the vast majority of male leaders on the planet have tried to tough it out, and their citizens have paid for that posturing, as Americans are doing, dearly. The women had no manliness to prove, so they were wisely and honestly afraid, and acted accordingly, swiftly and efficiently. I don't think that's because of any mysterious, inherent quality possessed by women or lacked by men. I think that lets men off way too easily. But even if it is, I bet that can change. Women produce more of the hormone oxytocin, yes, that hormone named the tend and befriend secretion to offset the adrenaline fight or flight. But men produce oxytocin too. Behavior can change because of experience, and practice can change because of legislation. This catastrophe is a teachable moment, if we can hear it. For that, at the ballot box in November in this country, and across the international community of humans, we need to clear the air in order to see the highest mountain peaks. We need to listen to the previously silenced half that is female. That half is speaking, like the earth itself. It's alive. What can we learn from this? Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag fighting words. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at The Robin Morgan, and you can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book of poems, Dark Matter, and my brand new novel, Parallax, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor Regina K. Scully, WMC president and co-executive producer of this program Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.